Hello everyone, welcome to Methods 2 Week 13. In the final tutorial of the semester, we're going to be looking at how to diagram your model. So in diagramming, what we're going to focus on this time is how do we develop a sequence diagram that shows off the rule set that we use to create this. Or maybe it's a sequence of how you think you can construct it. So first off, I want everyone to create a new model. All you need to do is go to File, Save As, and save it as a different name. Now what that's going to do is going to preserve your original final model, but also give us a whole new model, a whole new file that we can edit and not be afraid that we're editing parts of our final model. Okay, so now that we have this new Rhino file with our final design, I need everyone to kind of group this layer, these layers that hold your model information. What I'm going to do is just say final, let me call it final step. So I'm going to create a new parent layer that all our other layers will go into. I'm going to select all these layers and just drag it into that final step layer. So this is our final step. Now, since we have 6 steps, what I'm going to do is just duplicate layer and objects 5 more times. I want to say yes to all. This will duplicate everything in that parent layer. So it's going to duplicate all those layers and all the objects in those layers. It's going to say yes to all. I'm going to rename this first step. And I can duplicate that again, duplicate layers and objects, yes to everything. Second step. And you'll just keep doing that for however many steps you need. Third step. I'm just going to do 3 steps right now. Again, everyone's meant to have at least 6 steps or 6 steps. And so when we're looking at these steps, we're not going to edit anything in the final, so I'm just going to turn the layer off and lock it. Now on the first and second steps, let's see what we can think of when we're thinking about those. Maybe for my first step, I'm just going to show the existing conditions. So I'm just going to turn all these other things off. And now we have our existing conditions, which is that corridor with the punched opening. In our second step, maybe we're showing how these vertical members, I'm going to group this, these vertical members get installed. So I'm just going to turn off everything or delete everything that's not those. Okay, so that's our second step. And maybe we don't want to show them in there immediately, but rather show how they come in. So I'm going to drag these out to a certain distance. And then we can, whenever we make the line work of this, we can show some dotted lines or an arrow showing how these actually fit into this opening. Before I move any further though, let's talk about setting up the views. So as discussed in class, when we're doing these diagrams, they're mainly done with orthographic drawings or axonometric drawings. So I'm going to set my view to this isometric southeast, right? So now we have an axon. We can move this to however we want it. Maybe that's sufficient for what I'm trying to show. Let me do that again. Southeast. Maybe that's fine like that. I'm going to drag these out a little bit further, just so there's no overlap with our lines. And that seems pretty good. Now what I can do is set up my third step. So now our frames are in place. Maybe this one we're showing how these horizontal members get installed or where they get installed. So again, I'm just going to drag these out and we'll show that there's an arrow or dotted lines coming from here. Okay. So we found the view that we like. Let's save that view in case we accidentally move it in the future. I'm going to save. I'm going to call it diagram. So now we have our diagram 1 view saved. So if I move anywhere, I can always go back to it, set my view as diagram 1, and that's going to go back to how we saved it. Okay. Now that's more or less all the things we need to do for Rhino. Of course, every time we make a new step, we need to edit the model. And I just copied all these things on top of each other. But again, if you wanted to, you could take that final step and we can create multiple instances of these models and do it like that as well. That way we can see how all of these progress at once, right? We can see like from here to here to here, like this is 3, 2, 1, for instance. I'm not going to set it up like that. I'd rather do it this way. Okay. And I believe this way is a little bit easier because it's all right here. Nothing has moved. It's the same view. All I'm going to do right now is just make 2D. And we want to make sure that our scene silhouette is turned on. And we maintain our source layers. Keep the same view, the diagram view. Don't want any of these other lines. No, I don't think so. We don't have to group output, but you can if you wanted to. I'm going to name this as third, because this is my third step. If we go to our top view, we can see what we have. That's fine. We can keep that there. I'm going to go ahead and make the other ones. So for our second, 2D. There's our second one. Now for the first one, it's going to be very similar, right? I can do it this way, and then I can just delete all of these. So I go to my top views now. We got to do a little bit of cleanup. Before I copy this one over, I need to clean up this one. Then I can just copy it all together. So we don't need these lines here. It's going to be a lot easier for us to clean up in Rhino than it will be in Illustrator, which is what we're going to be using. Again, for your diagrams, you don't need to be using Illustrator, but we need to be using at least Rhino and Photoshop. Everything else is up to you of what programs you want to use based on the software we learned throughout the semester. So it's all up to you. But I'm going to set this up nicely in Rhino first. That way I have an easier time editing everything in Illustrator. So I'm going to delete this because this is basically just our step 1, the existing conditions. Okay. Now that I have that done, let me me kind of fix these layers a little bit better. I'm going to select, I'm going to create some new layers. Let's do it that way. So I'm going to call this the outline. Outline is going to be the thickest line. Diagram line weights are a little bit different than traditional drawing line weights. The scene silhouette, which is what we did in Make 2D, is basically just creating an outline of everything. That's going to be typically your thickest line weight in diagrams. It's more showing the overall mass. Then I'm going to create a heavy line weight, and then a medium, and a light. Those are just four generic line weight categories. So if I open my third and I can select the scene silhouette, I select all these sublayer objects. You see everything that's being selected here. I do that again for the second one. I can select that scene silhouette, select all those sublayer objects. All of these are going to have a thicker line weight. So I can move that to my outline. Okay. And if I delete or hide that outline, let's just hide it for now. I can now delete that scene silhouette from both. Now I just have these to worry about. I'm just doing a little bit more cleanup so we can see what actually is there. Okay. So let me go through and see what is actually the heavier line weights. We know that these lines here are the closest to us, because this is our point of reference. That's going to be a outline line. So I can make all these pretty heavy lines. This can be a medium line, so as well as these over here. I'm going to turn these off. And we know that this is our outline line, so we don't really need that now. So if I turn these on, we should have all of our lines. Now that's pretty good. I'm just going to go ahead and just delete these. Oh, I won't do that for the outline, but I'm going to just copy these because they're all the same. Well, maybe not this one. Maybe I'll do this one separately, but we know this one's the same. And I can delete this. Oops. I need to actually put these on over here. Because these are so tiny of lines, let's just move all of these to medium. We can actually go in here, select them this way. Should we move them medium or light? Let's actually just move them to the light since they're so tiny. Now we can delete this layer because we have it here in the outline, right? So we're fine there. Here, again, we want to make these the heavy line weights. Just try to select these really quickly. So these can be heavy. Oh, missed this one here. and everything else in here can be medium. Let's make these blue ones here also light. Is it pretty detailed? Small. What else are we missing? Just lock these so I can't edit them any further. This one can be medium. Maybe everything else in here can be medium as well. Okay. That should be it for these lines. Looks like we missed a line here, which is a lot easier to fix right now, right? I missed it over here as well. I did. Okay. Now we have our line set up. It's going to be a lot easier for us to move into Illustrator. I'm going to unlock all of those. I'm just going to select all of these things. I can go to Export Selected. Again, export them as an Illustrator file. Pull up diagram. One. Snapshot, that's fine. Everything's okay. Now if I open my Illustrator, I can open that file. Okay. We can change our artboard with this tool over here to make it a little bit larger. Oops, don't want to make another artboard. Now I can select all of these lines, scale them, make sure we hold shift so we maintain those proportions. Again, we can make our artboard even larger. There we go, much better. You can actually see a bit better. So if I go to my layers on the right over here, I can select these lines. I can select my heavy ones. I'm going to just drag this over here so you see a little bit better. There we go. So we can see our layers up here, and now we see our properties over here. So I want my stroke to be maybe a 2 or a 3. It's pretty heavy. Maybe it needs to be actually a 2. And again, if your lines have colors, we need to make sure that they're all the black line color, right? So we can make sure that they're black. Our heavy lines, maybe they need to be like a 0.75. That's looking pretty good. Our mediums, right? Those can go to like 0.5, and light could be 0.25. I think that looks decent. There's not that much of a difference between the heavy and medium. Maybe that actually wants to go up to a 1, right? It looks a lot better compared to these lines. We don't really see that much difference in the line work here. So what I'm going to do is select all of these lines here. Now if I move this around, see what lines we still have selected, which were these. Now if I move this, still have a couple lines that I don't want. So select this one, select this one down here. Now we should be fine. So we can select all of these, and we can make them all turn off the light ones and make all of these actually the medium line weights. So 0.5. Now it's a little bit lighter, but still pretty nice. Like, not terrible. All right. We don't need to make everything have a scene outline or an outline that's really thick. We're mainly wanting to see this volume here have the outline. So that's why I left it like that. And these look pretty nice as well. These are all light. Yeah, I think that's fine. Everything looks pretty balanced. Okay, now that we have this done, we can drag this into Photoshop and just make a new file. I'm going to make it a pretty large file. So I want to make sure that I'm making all these images pretty high quality in terms of the pixels resolution. I'm just going to do, I don't know, like a 45 by 25. Now if I drag that diagram into here, the page, right? If I click OK, that seems pretty good. If I zoom in, I see that the lines are pretty nice and crisp because of the size of our drawing. Now what I can do is start to designate areas for color. Now I can select my color to be anything that we want, but first let's set up the areas that we're going to be working in. So with selecting our diagram layer, we don't even have to rasterize it. We can just start selecting these faces. Oops. I'm selecting all the faces here. Again, since this is at an axon, we could just do one and copy it all the way. Now I'm just going to do this. Maybe on another one I'll show you how to copy it. I'm going to go to that new layer I created. I'm going to use my paint bucket. I'm going to fill all those layers, all those selected. Now that front face is this kind of teal color. I'm going to go with that same color, just a little bit lighter. And now I can do the same thing for the tops. I'm just going to do one right now and I can copy it more easily. Go to that layer one, or maybe even a new layer, so we keep our layers a little bit more manageable. We make that top one lighter, and we can make the side a darker color. All this is doing is giving your drawing a little bit more three-dimensionality without actually providing shadows. So if I drag all three of these layers down, I can call this medium, light, and dark. And I know that those are my colors, and we can kind of just see here how much difference that makes. Again, we can copy this, right? We can place it where it needs to go. If I hold Alt, I can copy that again. I'm not copying the layer, I'm just copying that selection of color, right? And placing it in the others. Again, we can do it this way, or we could magic wand, going back to the diagram, right? Either way works fine. Whichever one you find to be easier and quicker, we could do it that way. If we lose that color from before, we could easily just go back to one that we already had. We press Alt and we match that color. Same thing as using the eyedropper, right? If we eyedropper this, we see that the bottom is the color that we currently have and the top is the color that's going to become. We still want to go to that lighter color. If I go to my paint bucket, it quickly changes all of those. Okay. And again, we can do that for the dark one as well. I'll just do this all very quickly. Find my dark color. Paint bucket it in. Now we have all these colored. And that's how we can signify these are the new thing being added. For this one, we can do the same thing, right? Following that same logic where the front-facing one, these here, these are the darker color. The top one, oops. The top one is the lighter color. Find this color, right? So that one, and bucket those. And then the medium is the right side. Paint bucket those. Oops. Sure, on our right layer. There we go. Now we have all of those properly colored as well. Again, you do it for all of them, not just these couple ones. Now we can start to show dash lines or an arrow showing how this is going in. For our sake, I'm just going to do arrows. So we have our colors. We kind of want those arrows to be the same color. That way we're really showing how this is coming together. And what we can do is use the line tool. This is one option. Again, there's many ways that we can do this. So when we draw our lines, we have this function here, the gear. We can change it to be with an arrowhead. Now if we zoom into this, right? First off, let's get a little bit thicker. So we start the line, thickness, let's make it 3 pixels. Again, this arrowhead is so tiny we can't even see it here. We make it bigger. Let's just do 15. Can we see it now? Still can't see the arrowhead. No, there it is. Okay, so that previous one didn't have an arrowhead because we didn't set it up yet. So if we want to make an arrow, we can make these arrowheads. Again, we only need to go in one direction because we're showing it moving into there. So start and it ends here, right? We can edit this line if we wanted to. It doesn't need to be that long. We can change the fill and the stroke Maybe the stroke wants to be the darker and then the fill wants to be the lighter, or however we want to make it. We can change the weight, right? Makes the stroke a little bit bigger. But that being said, like this arrow, it's not the best. Like we could do better, right? So I'm just going to delete that. And if we go to our shape tools again, we can do a custom shape tool. And for any reason that you might want, you could create these custom shapes, right? This looks like some kind of like lion or tiger. Again, we don't want those. We want an arrow. So if you go to download that custom, go to that week 13 module again, we can download these arrow abundance custom shape handle family or library. So I download that, and we can go to our custom shapes. If we click this little gear, we can import shapes. I go to import that arrow abundance. Now we see that that family or library has shown up here, and we have all these arrows that we can use, which are a little bit more diagrammatic and architectural in nature. I'm just going to select this one here, and we can just draw this arrow. It's a lot better than just the single line tool, but we see that it is not in the right drawing style or view style. It looks like it's more of an orthographic, right? It's very two-dimensional, while our drawing is an axon. So what we need to do is we can Control T and we can distort it. And I can take that over to some of these more straight lines, and we can distort our arrow where it looks like it's more an axon. Right? I have to play around with it for a little bit, just trying to get it where it's more believable. Right? And that looks pretty good. Kind of more an axon, still not great. Still looks like it has kind of like perspective to it. So another thing that we could do is just do it in Rhino itself. So we can go to like our top view. But I'm just going to create a new layer for this. We can draw an arrow, very similar to the one we just had. If I mirror this, we can extend. Right, and trim this, join these together. There we go. We can look at this in our axon view, and we see that it's already at that same view style. We want to move this here. Yeah, it's a little bit too big, right? We can move it up or down. And now we have this arrow. And we can go ahead and make 2D. We have the arrow that's at that same orthographic projection. We can move this over in here. And now when we're make 2Ding this, or exporting this to Illustrator, now we have a perfectly drawn arrow that we could use anywhere. We could even drag this out over here and just use this anywhere that we want in the Photoshop model. Okay. So moving forward, we have our arrows done. More like this, actually. We have our arrows done to the right projection style. And we can keep doing this for each little step, right? Again, this is your moment to kind of show off your design decisions. Now we can save this. I'm just going to save it as a copy, save a copy. Just save it as a JPEG. We can take it into our InDesign file that we have been setting up. Now I'm a little bit late to all the other stuff because I haven't been keeping up with every single assignment, but everyone should now have their what is it, 14 or 15 page PDF document ready to go for the final submission. If we just go back to my screen mode, go to normal, we can create 6 frames. Our 6 steps. Drop those images in there. Again, I believe everyone knows by this time how to set up drop those all in there. Right, we can fit them so they fit in there perfectly, fit content proportionally. There we go. Again, we'll be doing that for the other 3 as well. We can label these, right? Step 1. Bring this down here. Maybe I want to change the font. Maybe bold, right? Again, you can decide how you want this. Maybe this needs to be smaller, not bold. This is my rule 1. Again, we can copy this for every single one. Making sure they're all in the same spots relative to each other. Right. This is 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Maybe 6 is that final one, right? Then once we put our title block on there, then that is basically it for this assignment. Right? We have our diagrams, which have the 6 steps, our title block, and that's it. One thing that I didn't mention in class is for your final submission, because it is 24% of your entire methods grade, we want to be making it look a little bit better than all of our other previous assignments. So if you have previous assignments that you received your feedback, right? Received your comments, you can go back and update some of those, especially if they're wildly different than what they should have been. We can update those and include them in the final draft that we're going to be submitting, and it will more than likely improve your grade, right? You're not going to be docked points for each assignment, because in the rubric for the final assignment, we're going to be going back and having specific points to each assignment. So your assignment 4 pages, how good did those look in relation to everything altogether? In addition to that, we need to be making a new cover page. So this cover page is going to have a unique visual or a unique graphic than anything else you have done. It could be a rendering, it could be like a diagrammatic line work drawing, it could be a more abstract representation of your rule set, right? Maybe it's just a pattern that's being done, similar to what's being shown in the assignment 6. If I go to that real quick, right? It could be like this kind of graphic here that is a more representation of your rule set. But it has to be something unique and new. And it can be anything that you want. It has to be regarding your solar shade project. I believe that is everything for this assignment 6. Again, this next week I will be going over general sheet composition and layouts, because we want to make sure that all of these sheets are cohesive throughout. You may have been experimenting or trying out new title blocks or layouts with every single assignment, but with this assignment 6, we're going to regularize everything and make it all consistent. Okay, I'll see everyone in class and hope you have a great rest of your weekend.